before we even started the business, we promised ourselves if we didn't have it in the rack ready to dispatch from the warehouse, we wouldn't sell it ever. My name's Keiran. I'm the one of the two co-founders of Swyft Home. I'm responsible for all the commercial activity within the business. So my business partner takes care of making all the sofas, and I take care of selling all the sofas, and we try and keep it simple like that.
And how did you spot a gap in the market or a need for this product line?
By delivering very expensive sofas into properties where it doesn't fit, and having to hire things like cranes and shut London streets down to get them installed, and thinking there must be a better way than this, which is always a bit cliche, right? The founder thinks there must be a better way, starts a business. But it originally came about because from an operational point of view, I set about thinking about the most efficient type of sofa you could make. I was responsible for a production facility, and I thought, well, if we were making it in component parts and just putting the fabric on at the very last point, we'd customize it at the final stage of production. We could have a more efficient line. And then over the years, that got and slowly morphed into a brand and a product brand that is Swyft. So it was really it was a need that I identified, but it was for a different reason.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And you launched the business early last year. So overall, it's not been that long, but what did the business look like back then compared to today? How's it changed over that short period?
Well, we've launched more product, so that's always a challenge. So we've got 4 products now, rather than just the one. So that makes a lot of things easier, a lot of things more complicated because we manufacture as well. So we've gone from, obviously in numbers, we've gone from 4 or 5 people making the product to close to 70 now. And from a product portfolio level, we've got 4 different products, 7 fabrics. So that change has been really great. It's obviously more variety helps your conversion and lowers cost of acquisition, but it also puts a large stress on the supply chain as well. So we've got more and more complex from a supply chain point of view, but hopefully able to offer our customers a little bit more choice.
Yeah, and obviously with that change, you mentioned your co-founders more on the manufacturing side, you're on the commercial side. Independently, how have your roles changed over the last year?
We still stick to our relative sandpits, if you like. I try not to help too much in the factory because when I do, I get told that I'm not as much help as I used to be. A polite way of putting it. But I think it's more. Our team below us, in the management tier below us, has really filled out, and we've got some amazing, very, very capable people. So actually, our roles have changed a bit in that we're less transactional and operational day to day because we've got people that, frankly, are far better than we are at that, and they're talking cross-level in the organisation. So there's a lot less of things coming up the business just to pass between the two of us, just to go back down, which is great. So our roles have become more they've actually probably come closer together in a way. We spend a lot more time working together on the business rather than each of us in our own areas just dealing directly with day-to-day issues, which is always nice to kind of develop the role as such in that way.
Yeah, makes sense. And it obviously sounds like you've ramped up production fairly quickly in terms of the team. What does, out of curiosity, what does a product launch look like in the furniture world? When I see you bringing out a new sofa bed, is it in the coming months? So what does that look like?
There's no really hard and fast rules for it. It's not like or interiors tries to follow fashion in a way, and people will tell you that there's 2 big launches in spring and autumn, and that August is a terrible month to launch product, and I don't really buy much of that, to be honest. It's such a long purchase journey and consideration that I just don't really see that consumers really care. Like, no one's sat waiting for the new, it's not like the iPhone or, Tesla. Like, no one's sat waiting for this product to be launched on September 5th. So really it's just about making sure you've done all of the due diligence. There's a lot more to the post production. So photography takes a long time. You got to have like different room shots and fabric samples cut, product cards, weights, dims, testing, packaging. Actually, post production and post R&D can take just as long as actually doing the product. Like we used to make bespoke furniture, so we would make 30 different unique one-off sofas every day. So we're good at getting something from basic concept to minimum viable product. That was our business, but getting it ready to go to market, that's where the challenge is.
And once you're on the market, one of your unique selling points is really the speed of delivering the sofa. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how do you ensure you've got the manufacturing capabilities that's not ever going to let you down? And when you're promising these sofas at speed, you know it's going to happen, and you've got the team there to make that happen.
Well, we before we even started the business, we promised ourselves if we didn't have it in the rack ready to dispatch from the warehouse, we wouldn't sell it ever. So we've stuck by that, and by having that North Star, the rest of the business falls into line with it. So we become about fulfilling our inventory rather than fulfilling an order. So we've got calculations that work out how many sales we lose a week because we didn't have availability based on run rate. And those numbers are very, very painful to read when you realize you've left 30, 40, 50% on the table every week. You start putting all your time and effort into creating availability. And that's what upholstery companies have never done before. They've never created availability. Every other retail operation in the world runs on availability, but upholstery for some reason decided they were going to do it differently and just take people's money and go away and make it. And by having that North Star, that's not to say we don't let people down. There's picking problems, packing problems, logistics problems. The van doesn't turn up. There's all sorts of things, and we don't get it right all the time. But that one thing is what I think sets us apart. The discipline inside our organisation to stick to that and not be tempted to just take the odd pre-order or open up the order book. That's some good corporate discipline there from us, I think.
And when you're talking about looking at the pain of the missed orders, if you like, because it is not available, is it a case of just reminding yourself of that North Star and actually potentially you got the business you did get because of that?
Yes, yeah, and also just if we don't have it to sell, that's our problem. We shouldn't put that onto our customer. We shouldn't put it onto them that they order and then have to wait 3 to 4 to 6 weeks. Like, this is our problem if we don't have it, and it's about owning that and being okay with it, and not just I've got as a commercial person, I've got a capacity to sell. That's basically my job, and my business partner Paul, his job is to increase that capacity so that we can increase the capacity we can sell. And it keeps us very mindful of the fact that our inefficiency and overproduction or underproduction is inefficiency isn't our customer's problem, it's ours.
Yeah, that's a great point of view. And just in terms of how you've made all this happen, so once you realized there was a real business here, obviously you've seen it from your previous business that the need was there. How did you go about it in terms of funding? What was the process there?
So we've got a couple of different mechanisms. We're very lucky in that the previous business I was involved in had an investment firm who they're a venture debt company, and they're our sole backers. So that's been really helpful. We've got a long-term relationship with them, and they're very, they've got some experience now in the furniture market thanks to us. I think we're their only furniture retailer. So we've been through a lot together, and Swyft's something that we've been working towards for a long time. So we've got that, and then we've also got some revolving working capital facility that we take on top of that helps us kind of finance the marketing growth, spending a couple of weeks ahead of the growth you need, which is really great as well from a company called Uncapped.
Yeah. So what advice do you have then for founders that are considering venture debt as an option for themselves?
It's quite niche. It's a nice way of doing it without giving away equity. And it can work really nicely. I would just say that, your FD or your finance part of your business has to be really comfortable with the repayment structure, because just like anything, it's got to be very rigid, and you've got to make sure that there's easy headroom if something goes wrong or not to plan, that you can still cover it. But it's definitely, I would say it's an underrated form of financing, especially if you can, find a smaller firm that perhaps is willing to take longer term bets. You can do quite well.
Perfect. And tell us a bit then about the goals and the targets for 2021.
Well, we're trying to go 10 times for 2021. So that's going to be a challenge, especially as we manufacture our product. It's not like we're just selling someone else's capacity or buying in container loads of widgets. So that's going to be hard. But I think more importantly than that, we're going to venture outside of upholstery for the first time. We're called Swyft Home rather than Swyft Sofas. So, that was a conscious decision right at the start. We didn't want to become a one-trick pony and leave ourselves as the sofa guys. There's plenty of those, and they do very well, and good for them. But no, we're trying to open ourselves up into the whole home market. So we've got some launches outside of upholstery. We've got the sofa bed, obviously, and then another upholstered item at the end of the year. So very busy product development, huge sales growth, huge fulfillment growth, and looking to take some of our marketing activities outside of just acquisition as well. So that'll be really exciting.
Yeah, nice. And what do you envisage as some of the challenges you're going to face then to reach those goals this year?
Supply chain, mainly. The costs of moving goods around the world is just skyrocketed. The delays are just never ending currently, even if you think it's simple and easy. And it's just a truck. Our factory's only in Portugal, and we're experiencing delays of 3 to 4 times as long to ship it as it was in November. And there's not much we can do about it. Those kind of macro conditions, you just have to get on with it and try and hope it will end. And so it's all supply chain is the big challenge. I don't think we've seen the worst of the impact on the global supply chain from COVID. I think from a workforce point of view, it's getting better. As more people have either sadly had it, or we've got kind of tighter controls and track and trace. But we had a lot of workforce out end of last year. I think the supply chain is going to take a long time to unwind itself.
And on top of that, I guess there's all the complications with your team itself as well. So what's that been like in terms of running the company and the team remotely?
Oh, the team have been great. They adapted so fast to it. We've got a great hard-working team. So at no point have I had that nervousness that maybe people aren't giving enough or as much as they could. I think we've been more efficient being at home. Onboarding new people was probably the hardest thing to do, because you rely on that kind of bank of social capital you have from the years of being in the office together and that relationship. When you're onboarding new people, it's really hard to do that. So that's been the challenge.
Yeah, and have you got any learners from that? So we're currently going through it at the moment. So Will, who's on the line as well, is new to the team. So how's that been from your point of view? Any tips there?
I would say however much contact you think is the right amount for a new starter, treble it, and you'll probably be about right. Because I think it takes about 3 times as long to build those relationships remotely as it does. I've got no science to back that up, by the way. Just gut feel. It's about 3 times as long to build those relationships. So if you were going to catch up once a week in the office, try and do it 3 times a week in the first few weeks. That would be how I've tried it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned just before we jumped on this call that you actually don't plan to go back to the office, and remote working seems to be working well. Is that something you think would be right for most businesses, or do you think that's specific to yours, or what does that look like?
No, I mean, we asked our people what they wanted to do, and perhaps unsurprisingly, the more junior members of the team wanted to be in an office more, which I completely understand, because you want to be there learning and seeing things that are outside of your role. And the more senior you are in the business, the less time you want to be there. And the more you are, our finance team doesn't want to ever go back again. or anything, because he's quite happy sat at home being grumpy. So big shout out to him. But yeah, it's definitely on an experience thing. So we'll look to open up something later in the year where people can go if they want, but it won't be a compulsory 2-3 days or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it sounds like it's a really interesting business and moving at quite a rate as well. So just to finish off, where can people find out more about both yourself and Swyft?
Myself, I guess, LinkedIn, or and there's my emails on there. So if anyone's got any questions or any kind of comments, then just shoot me over an email. I'm reasonably okay at picking them up. And then for Swyft, our website, best place to find us. Or we've got a whole host of independent retailers around the country that stock our products under the Swyft brand. So if you wanted to try it out and actually sit on it for real once lockdown's over, then you can. And I hope that we don't spend as much time on our sofas this year as we did last year, even though that won't be as good for business. I think as long as we can all get out, that'd be great.